Everyone ought to get familiar with this 2x2 grid, because its underlying logic is governing political sentiment in the United States. It explains what has happened domestically in response to the Iran war, and it will explain what will happen next to Trump's polling numbers, following yet another turbulent moment in US politics. Indeed, the latest iteration of this comes from last night's scheduled White House Correspondents' Dinner, or at least planned dinner. It was interrupted by an alleged shooter, whom everyone suspects, without confirmation for now, was attempting to assassinate President Trump. Let me first speak about the event itself. The Correspondents' Dinner is an annual gala that takes place at the Washington Hilton. It is about a mile and a half from the White House, and up until yesterday, it was best known as the site of the assassination attempt on Ronald Reagan. Reagan was actually shot in that incident, and it was unclear for a while whether he would survive. It also hosts the American Political Science Association's annual conference whenever it cycles through Washington, D.C., so I have been there many times in my life. This is a personal photo of mine from the 2019 conference, taken of the line to take a shuttle to the other conference hotel. You can see a plaque at a sharp angle that marks the Reagan assassination attempt. Anyway, as someone who has been proximate to world leaders a handful of times, I found last night's security situation at the Hilton to be surprising. The suspect essentially YOLO'd right past the security perimeter, and was close enough to the president that the shots were audible, though as I write this, it is unclear whether the shots were from the suspect or from Secret Service agents trying to take him down. Without divulging specific details about security strategies, I have never been in a situation where this was remotely feasible. The first security perimeter is always far enough away that anyone who might storm through would be sprinting for a minute before getting anywhere close to anyone important. Moreover, there is always at least a second layer between initial screenings and when you get access to VIPs. Consequently, this incident will raise questions about the Secret Service's planning, as well as the overall wisdom of hosting an event like this at an active hotel, which the suspect was staying at. Aside from domestically focused political threats, we have recently discussed the incentives for militant groups to make a play in the United States to raise awareness to a particular group's existence. Usually, we would have soft targets in mind for that type of thing, but the concern still holds at higher levels. Also, no surprise that before the night ended, Trump was already touting the utility of the new White House ballroom under construction as a way to guarantee a better security perimeter. He was all too happy to take advantage of the opportunity, but he is not wrong about that. In any case, the meat of today's conversation is focused on the political consequences of the potential assassination attempt. You do not have to spend much time sorting through social media before you find conspiracy theories about this having been an inside job, that it was purely an attempt to garner public support for the president at a time of international crisis. Well, I do not have any inside knowledge of what the White House was allegedly trying to do in that regard. I would generally invite anyone with that perspective to think hard about the difficulty of trying to stage an assassination attempt with live ammunition, and indeed one Secret Service officer getting shot. I would also suggest noting that Trump is a historically unpopular president who has adopted the most politically polarizing positions that anyone alive can remember. And although I would not recommend that political radicals start trying to assassinate him, politics is not a zero-sum game, and this will only make things worse for the United States as a whole. Perhaps we should not be surprised that some individuals take things to the extreme, lest we forget that there are some true lunatics in this world. Lest we forget that Reagan's would-be assassin was trying to kill the president because he thought it would impress Jodie Foster. Yes, the actress Jodie Foster. And man, if that is not the stupidest sentence I have ever said, I am not sure what is. Anyway, back to the 2x2 grid. This is something that we have been looking at since the United States was staging an armada outside of Venezuela, which indeed culminated in the arrest of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. There were plenty of discussions back then about how this was one giant wag the dog situation, where the president was trying to manufacture a rally round the flag effect to bump his sagging poll numbers. It is very difficult for an analyst such as myself to confidently forecast what will happen in international relations. The world system is a soup of private information, and it is impossible for people like me to know all of the secrets that the US and every foreign government know. It is why you should ridicule people in my position who claim to know everything that is about to happen. The "Putin is done" crowd, for example, are a bunch of pretenders. Maybe he is. Maybe he is not. We do not know. But effects on public opinion, especially on these matters, are significantly more predictable. As the Venezuela situation was forming, I noted that such a political strategy would not be effective. Sure enough, despite a militarily brilliant operation to arrest Maduro, basically the American public did not care. Polls either showed no change, or any difference remained in the margin of error, even though, again, the operation was a massive success from a military perspective, and it removed a leader that many former presidents had tried unsuccessfully to remove via less aggressive means. And the reason, once more, is this 2x2 grid. A successful rally round the flag needs to convert non-supporters into supporters. The mechanism by which that happens is that individuals who do not support the president, but trust the president, switch their former position. Maybe they do not trust the president, but they still trust the office and the position. And when they see a crisis, they want to lend their support to empower the United States government to take the appropriate action. It is rare for theories of international conflict to yield meaningful testable hypotheses, which we can then confirm in the data. But this is one of them. The extent of rallies is, in fact, capped by trust in government. That is why we can be more confident with predictions here, as opposed to, say, exactly when a settlement between Ukraine and Russia will take hold. People pretending to be game theorists say that they can predict the future, and, unfortunately, some of the public have bought into that. True game theorists know that the discipline tells us that it is impossible to predict the future, at least in most meaningful strategic interactions. The public's reaction to observable conflict is outside that scope, which is why social scientists can be a bit more precise there. Well, I said this many months ago, but I will say it again. I know a lot of people who do not support and do not trust Donald Trump. I know a lot of people who support and trust Donald Trump. I even know a bunch of people who support but do not trust Donald Trump. But what I do not know is a group of people who do not support but do trust Donald Trump. Heck, looking at this grid helps make sense of the anti-rally round the flag effect that Trump has experienced since the start of the Iran war. That sizable group of individuals who supported but did not trust the president took one look at the situation and declared that they were done. Remember, the president campaigned on a platform to reduce foreign entanglements. If someone trusted Trump, they would look at the inconsistency between his actions and his campaign rhetoric, conclude that he must have a good reason to break from his position, and lend their support to him. But they do not trust him, and so his poll numbers continue to sink. It is hard to imagine how the public's response will be any different following the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Ask the public what they think about the possible assassination attempt, and you will hear plenty of sympathetic comments regarding the need to lower the political rhetoric in the United States. Ask them if they have changed their political opinion about Trump, and you will get much less of a response. In fact, we know this from the fallout from the Butler, Pennsylvania assassination attempt. There, the perpetrator actually fired shots at Trump, but his polling numbers only marginally improved in the aftermath, and any effects were essentially undetectable a week later, when Biden dropped out of the race and Harris stepped in. It is a cute historical story to retrospectively say that Butler sealed the November win for Trump. But the alternative hypothesis is that all Americans care about is affordability, and the Biden administration dropped the ball there. And the nicer feature of this alternative hypothesis is that it also explains what is happening in American politics today. The public hates the Iran war because it is causing gas prices to spike, which will have larger spillover effects on inflation. The assassination story is a nice political excuse, because it makes the Democrats' loss look like it was completely out of their control. But it is the wrong lesson to learn if you want to remain competitive in future elections. One final note here. Rallies round the flag are not the only benefits that leaders can get from the initiation of a crisis. Every breaking news story that captures the public's attention diverts the media's attention away from examining other, files of note. Same thing with Congress launching its own investigations. Thus, to answer today's central question about whether this will increase Trump's polling numbers, the answer is no, at least not meaningfully. Will it still have positive effects for him? Maybe. That is all for me today. Friendly reminder that I have an ongoing series over on Lines on Maps Extra, where I spend 8 minutes answering important questions that you guys have for me. Check it out. And if you enjoyed today's video, then please like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Take care.